In progress. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's info session with the Environmental Defense Fund on their 2025 Climate Corps Fellowship. My name is Samantha Pardo. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Career Services here at the Mark School. I'm here with my colleague, Suzanne Grossman. This session is open to all Baruch graduate students. So in the chat, if you can just let us know if you're from Zicklin, if you're from Marks, if you're from Weissman, we'd like to know where you're joining us from. So today we're going to start off with the info session. We have Ashley Medlar from EDF and Andrew Rubenbauer, who is a Marks alum and an EDF a Climate Corps previous fellow. We are hopefully going to have one more join us today. At the end of the session, we will be open for Q&A, but in the meantime, if you'd like to put in some questions, put them in the chat, but we'll address it towards the end of the session. All right, and I will turn it over to you, Ashley. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Samantha. Thanks everybody for being here. I see a good mix of Zicklin and Mark's friends. So looking forward to telling you all about Climate Corps today. I'm gonna share my screen. It's always a little bit of a risk still. Okay, I'm gonna assume that looks correct. If it doesn't, please let me know. But yeah, Samantha said, my name's Ashley Medlar. I'm here from Environmental Defense Fund to talk about EDF Climate Corps. I am the fellow recruitment manager on the Climate Corps team, and I'm very happy that you're all here today. So before I get into the details of things, if you'll indulge me, I would like to walk through a little bit of an imaginary day together. So on this imaginary day, you wake up, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, you put on your favorite earrings, you make some peanut butter jelly toast for breakfast, you take the subway downtown to run some errands. This says BART, by the way, which I totally should have switched to the MTA, but apologies. Um, you got to go to the bank, you got to grab some stuff from the pharmacy, you have lunch, you do some that's lunch. You do some fun shopping. Um, they have all these bags, so you take a ride share home. Your friend texts you about a concert that's coming to town, so you buy tickets. And then in the evening, you make dinner with some stuff you got at the grocery store the other day. You watch some TV, and you get in bed and go to sleep. So on this one pretty ordinary day, you would have interacted with almost 20 Climate Corps host organizations. So if you have ever been just walking around the world and wishing that the brands you interacted with were more sustainable, and if you've ever thought that you want to help them get there, Climate Corps wants to help you do that. And today I'm going to tell you how. So EDF Climate Corps is a summer fellowship program for graduate students who want to be part of the climate workforce. So we connect students with companies, public sector agencies, and nonprofit organizations to help those organizations meet their climate goals. So you're an EDF Climate Corps fellow, but you're working at and with another organization. Since 2008, we've had almost 2,000 fellows work with almost 700 organizations in the US, China, and India to reduce emissions in their operations and their supply chains. So here's my goals for the next, I don't know, 55 minutes. I want you to walk away from today knowing what EDF Climate Corps is, what the experience of being a fellow can look like. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but as Samantha said, our alum are also going to tell you what that looked like from their perspective. Uh, we'll talk about how the application works and how to be successful and how you can learn more because probably, if you're really interested in this, the next 50 minutes aren't going to answer all your questions. So we'll share a little bit about other opportunities. So to do that, this is our agenda. We're going to talk about what kinds of projects fellows work on, what the benefits of Climate Corps are, what we're looking for in applicants, and what the actual application process looks like. And I should mention that this is all specific to the US program. Like I said, we have programs in China and India. Their programs are a little bit different, but you can find out more about those on our website. It's the same idea, but Right, so let's talk about what fellows actually do at those host organizations. So this summer, fellows in the US work on 7 different kinds of projects. Those project types are climate smart food and ag systems, climate commitments and roadmaps, environmental and climate justice, renewables and energy efficiency, supplier engagement and scope 3, sustainable finance, and zero emission vehicles and fleet transition. Uh, we've selected these project types based on it's like where the sustainability landscape is and is heading, the scale of the impact we think these projects can have, and how they align with EDF's priorities and expertise. Like EDF is working on a lot of these issues. In addition to the project types themselves, we're also looking for projects that are actionable, have a clear pathway to implementation. Right? We don't want you to just like write something and the host takes it and puts it away and that's that, right? We want your projects to actually move forward. Um, we want projects that are integral to planning for like actual emissions reduction and projects even outside of the environmental and climate justice project type that contribute positively to folks who have been impacted by environmental injustice. And fellows do those kinds of projects at organizations across a pretty wide spectrum. In 2024, our top 5 host organization industries were financial services, tech, nonprofits, retail and apparel, and government and public administration, but we had more in basically every sector you can imagine from media to real estate. And you saw a lot of host organizations logos earlier, but I put some additional examples of 2024 hosts at the bottom of the screen. So we had fellows at Match Group, Google, Con Ed, PayPal, JetBlue, Bank of America, Pepsi. Um, like 40% of Fortune 100 companies have hosted a Climate Corps fellow. So it's a lot of big organizations, but also some smaller places, some startups. Kind of runs a wide range. So right now, I'm going to share with you 3 examples of Climate Corps projects. These are not representative of all 7 of those project types. Like we don't have that, we don't have that kind of time. But I'm hopeful that these will give you kind of an idea of what work you might do as a fellow. But if I don't share a lot about the kind of project you're interested in today, on our website, we have a database of every past Climate Corps project. So you can go on there and read about the kinds of work you are interested in. Um, but first, Frank developed a net zero strategy for Vertical Bridge to put the organization on track for 90% emissions by 2030, which is great. Um, and today he works as the director of sustainability at Vertical Bridge. They kept him on after his fellowship, and he also serves as a member of Climate Corps' alumni advisory board. So Frank is a big friend to Climate Corps. Anne worked with Hershey. She led the development of their greenhouse gas reduction strategy and roadmap for their sugar supply chain. So a big one for Hershey, right? She looked at analyzing where their emissions from sugar were coming from, identifying best practices and technologies they could use for emission reduction, and identifying touch points to engage with sugar suppliers. And Dylan developed an environmental justice strategy for a geothermal project in Lowell, Massachusetts. So through all of these, you can see that each of them has a pretty clear like deliverable. So you will end the summer with a dashboard, a roadmap, a strategy document, like something concrete that you can hand off and point to as an accomplishment. And that's something that Climate Corps really thinks is important. We really value a like project-based approach versus more ad hoc work you might do in a more typical internship. So that's what you might do. And sometimes when I share that with people, they're like, why would I not just go apply to one of those organizations myself? Like I can fill out a job application for Google, which is fair. Uh, but I would posit that outside of our projects and hosts, there are a few pieces of our program that make Climate Corps uniquely valuable. First is that before you start your fellowship, you'll come to our EDF Climate Corps training program. So this is a learning professional development program that we see as an essential and unique part of Climate Corps. Like most jobs aren't going to train you how to do the job, you know, in advance. Um, So we think this is really important for your fellowship, but also for your career as a well-rounded climate professional. So our training includes about a 10-hour virtual asynchronous learning program that you'll do in April and May. And then in late May, you'll attend our virtual about 40-hour fellow training week with your entire fellowship class. Some sessions during training are more technical in nature, like greenhouse gas accounting. Others are more focused on how to actually like get through and navigate the summer experience. This is on the screen there. This is a list of sessions that were held at this past year's training. Not every session might be directly relevant to your summer project, but we do think they're all important for a successful career in climate and sustainability. These are all things that we think are really important for you to understand, um, moving forward. You might not be doing a greenhouse gas accounting project, but that's kind of like a really baseline skill for a sustainability professional to have. Uh, Aside from the content, the other important part of training is that you get to meet, you know, everyone else in our network. We think that's really one of Climate Corps' greatest strengths, right? So there's other fellows, alumni, hosts, EDF experts. So during training week, you can start to kind of build your Climate Corps support system. So there'll be opportunities to connect with fellow fellows, lots of networking sessions, affinity group meetings, cohort discussions. And our cohort model is another important part of Climate Corps. So a cohort is a group of similar students doing similar kinds of projects, and you'll meet throughout the summer for workshops for like skill building, resource sharing, guest speakers. Like once you're actually doing the things over the summer, like really examining what it looks like to be doing those and what are the challenges you're running into. And those groups are led by EDF and partner experts. And then also, you're placed in this group and you'll meet formally throughout the summer, but many fellows also find a lot of value in more informal connection with cohort members who are working on similar projects. And in my experience, hosts are typically pretty supportive of you taking the time to participate in those conversations. Like many of them participate in Climate Corps because they know you have this outside support and they know that there's value in that. So you have your cohort advisor, your cohort members, and then as additional layers of support, each fellow is assigned an EDF engagement manager, so someone to work with you and your host organization, make sure things go as smoothly as possible for everybody. And you can also apply to be paired with an alumni mentor for fellowship guidance and career advice. And then after your fellowship is complete, you will join our network of sustainability professionals. We have access to like ongoing opportunities for learning and connecting with each other. Um, so like, I forget what we're calling them, like peer-to-peer mentoring, um, affinity groups, professional development workshops. And for us, continuing to provide you that support is really important because we know that to advance climate solutions, like you're not going to do it in like one summer. It's not something you can just be like, yep. Like you will have an impact on your host organization, but we think that we can build a more effective climate workforce if we continue to provide support throughout your career so you can continue like learning and growing and making the change that we all need. If you want a sneak peek at the end of this presentation, I can share a link to a recording of a network event so you can get a preview of the kinds of support we offer. But yeah, it's a good network to be part of. About 80+% of our alumni do work on sustainability as part of their full-time jobs. So it's a powerful group to be a part of. Really, people making the change that we all need. Chad is a member of our alumni advisory board, and he shared that Climate Corps was instrumental in supporting his career transition from engineer to sustainability leader. And I'm gonna just like read this word for word because I think it's important. The EDF Climate Corps Fellowship accelerated my career, providing essential training, a powerful network, and invaluable entrepreneurial workshops. It led directly to co-founding my company with another Climate Corps fellow and advancing to head of sustainability in my current role. Like Climate Corps really had a big impact on Chad's professional life, and his journey is not really unique in our network. And I think that's part of what makes Climate Corps so special. Right, so hopefully you're like sold on the whole idea. So how do you join? I'm going to walk through our program requirements, what we're looking for in a fellow, and what the process of becoming a fellow looks like. And Andrew and Nishi, I should mention, this is a little different from when you applied. So I'm excited for you to see. We have 3 non-negotiable requirements. First, you must be enrolled in a graduate degree or certificate program between now and January 2025, which you all are. If you are graduating fall 2024 or spring 2025, that's cool with us. Um, Certainly if you're between first year, second year, we don't care. If you're in grad school right now, you're welcome. Second, you must be authorized to work in the United States. If you're an international student, you probably have a F1 or J1 student visa that lets you get work authorization through Baruch. Um, if you have any questions about this, you can look at our work authorization policy. But in 2024, I think 40% of our fellows were international students. So you're in good company. Um, we require host organizations to be able to work with an international student unless there's like national security reasons why they can't. So we're happy to have you as well. And third, you must be able to attend Climate Corps Fellow training in late May. I can't tell you exactly what the dates are yet, which makes it a little hard to say. You're required to be there, but we should have the dates in the next month or so. So beyond those like required requirements, these qualifications in general are what we're looking for in a Climate Corps Fellow. So I'm going to walk through each of these briefly, give you an idea of just like what you should be writing about on your application. First, basically every Climate Corps Fellow is a project manager. So we want to hear about your experience managing projects, like taking something from start to finish. Um, that can be in like class projects, internships, work, other activities. We want to hear about your ability to plan, organize, and execute efficiently. Bonus points if you engaged other people throughout the project. No Climate Corps Fellow project can just be done by themselves. Um, so we want to hear about how you've brought people along with you. Showcase your educational background, relevant classes. Like there's like a box on the application. You can just like type class names, certifications, trainings, anything related to environmental sustainability, climate action, and anything you'll have completed prior to starting the fellowship is relevant. So feel free to include coursework you're planning for the spring. Maybe just like put a little note that you haven't taken it yet. So we don't like ask you what you thought about that class or something in your interview. Um, Fellows need to be able to drive work forward within their host organizations. So share instances where you've taken initiative to lead or like drive positive change. A big part of Climate Corps, again, you're going to be working with all these people. So a big part of this is being able to engage with staff at all levels of your host organization, from folks on the ground to executives. So I want to hear about your ability to communicate effectively, whether that's in like written reports, presentations, interpersonal interactions, like if you're just like really good with people. Tell us where you shine so we can match you with a host who is looking for the communication styles you excel at. Right? I don't think you're going to be like an amazing writer and an amazing public speaker and have amazing EQ. Like maybe, but most people are better at one thing than the other. So you can be honest about what you are good at. We want to know about any actions you've taken to address environmental issues in your community or beyond. So if you're in any environmental student groups, you've done any formal or informal volunteer work, issues you've advocated for, projects you've done, like classes you've taken, just anything that shows us you have invested time and energy into this work. And if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, that's fine. That's what your cover letter is for. You can just talk about what this work means to you and why you want to participate in solutions going forward. If applicable, provide examples of your data analysis skills, using that term very broadly, but it could look like research, data collection, analysis, visualization. You can be pretty specific, like you can list particular programs that you're knowledgeable about. And at this stage, we're not looking for particular programs. Like I'm not going to say, oh, your application doesn't have Power BI or whatever on it. Nope. But including that information will be helpful for us if you advance to the next stages of the process. Uh, and this should really probably be named quantitative analysis, because if you have financial analysis skills, you should highlight those as well. That's also something that can be helpful. Highlight any relevant professional experience, internships, volunteer work, anything that you feel like has prepared you for a role in Climate Corps. Right? Explain how your experiences have shaped your understanding of just like issues relevant to the kinds of projects you're interested in. And please note that here relevant is very broad. I don't necessarily mean sustainability experience. It certainly can't. Like if you have worked in sustainability, that's pretty relevant. But also like if you're an engineer and your background is in engineering and you're looking for a more kind of technical renewables project, like that's pretty relevant. Or if you're interested in a public sector project and you've worked in municipal government before, that's definitely relevant, even if you weren't working on climate issues, right? Just knowing how that space functions. Um, and yeah, you can even think like more broad to just your general life experience. So Andrew might tell you later that his project was with an agricultural organization, wasn't studying agriculture, but he knew about that from his personal life. So to the extent that you've learned things that like maybe aren't on your resume, but they've prepared you for this work, you're welcome to share that with us. Uh, Demonstrate your ability to and willingness to work in a variety of environments, right? Climate work often involves unforeseen challenges, and the most successful fellows that I've worked with are the ones that have been able to pivot when they needed to get their job done. We want to hear about your ability to work effectively with people from diverse backgrounds and perspectives, right? We think inclusivity and cultural competency are really essential to be able to address climate change on the global scale. So we want fellows who also believe that. Uh, and this feels like the right time to highlight that our fellows also come from a really wide variety of personal, professional, and academic backgrounds. So this is a quick snapshot of the 2024 cohort, just to show how diverse this year's class of fellows was. EDF's mission is to create a vital Earth for everyone. So we need people from all identities, all backgrounds, professional and academic and personal, to be able to create, lasting environmental solutions that will work for everyone. So we're, again, just really looking for fellows who also believe in the power of inclusive climate work. And finally, we're looking for like an actual enthusiasm for joining Climate Corps and our network. So I want to hear what excites you about our program, like how you're going to participate in our network as an active member, or like, here's how Climate Corps fits into my career path and why I'm really excited about that. Um, whatever, whatever you think. So, like as a whole, you can see only a few of these were related to prior experience slash education and sustainability. Like, um, so if you're thinking to yourself, I'm interested in this. She's saying there's a mix of criteria, but I really don't have any sustainability experience. Like, do I have a real shot at this? And please let me tell you that if you can make your case for the other things we are looking for, the answer is absolutely yes. One of our team members did a word cloud of the skills slash qualities our host organizations say they are looking for. And you can see that their top requests are not for subject matter expertise. Like hosts are looking for someone who can come into an organization, get things done, and while it can be helpful to come with a base of experience and knowledge, um, in climate and sustainability, it's not required. So if you decide you want to apply, here's what the process looks like. First, you will submit an application. This year's application deadline is December 22nd. Well-qualified applicants will be invited to review our list of available projects around mid-January, and we'll ask you to select your top choices. And then on a rolling basis from late January through March, we will match candidates with projects and then invite you to interview for that project. So then if your interview is successful, you will receive a placement offer. Once you accept your offer, you'll be invited to connect with the supervisor at your host organization, and that finalizes your placement in the program. So the application itself, like I said, this year's deadline is December 22nd. I recommend applying earlier if you can. Gives our team time to ask questions about anything on your application. Make sure you have no like technical difficulties. The application itself has four main components. First, just a form that asks some general demographic questions, some questions about your project preferences, a resume. Keep in mind all the criteria I just talked about. Um, and just also remembering that like you're in a grad program that has probably provided you with some great experiences. So feel free to include experiences related to like projects you've worked on, students groups you've been involved in. This is a program for students. So I'm open to seeing more than strictly paid work experience on your resume. We'll ask for a cover letter, especially if you don't have specific experience or coursework in sustainability. Your cover letter is your chance to tell us why this program makes sense for your background and your goals. Right? I want to walk away from reading that document saying, like, knowing the answer to the question, why is this person applying for this program? We actually do like read all your cover letters. So they're important. And references. We'll ask for 3 references total. Ask that at least 2 be professional references, so people you've worked with, and at least one of those be supervisor. Well, for references on the initial application, we don't actually reach out to those people until you're in the interview process. And you'll get a little bit of a heads up. So you can give those people you can let them know that we'll be reaching out soon. And they're asked to complete an online form. It should take like 10, 15 minutes. So it's not a big ask. They don't need to like write a letter or anything. After your interview, you get access to a full list of potential host organizations and projects. You'll choose your top preferences. And we use this to match you with a host organization for the summer. Not everyone who advances to this stage will be matched with a host, so it's important to take the selection of projects seriously. I'll talk about that on the next slide. But when selecting your projects, you'll see what the host is looking for, the fellowship location, and whether it's on-site, totally remote. Fellows' preference means the host leaves it up to you. If it's in person, whether the host offers any relocation support. It's not required that they do, but some will. And you'll see the weekly pay. So all hosts are required to pay a minimum of $1,400 per week, but some do pay more. You can see that. And then you'll write a paragraph for each, articulating why you are a good match for what that project is looking for and how you align with the skills and qualities that the host specifies. And this is really valuable because your application itself is pretty open-ended. Like you're like, I think I could be a good fellow doing something. So this is basically like this is your opportunities to speak directly to each like job posting and let us know about things that you might not have included on your initial application. Right? For example, like maybe you used to be a teacher and you didn't put that on your resume because you didn't think it was relevant, which like by the way, don't do that. If you were a teacher, please tell us because that gives a person a lot of important skills. Um, But anyway, you didn't on your application, but then the host specifies that they're looking for someone with a background in education. So this is where you can raise that, or you can talk about a class project you did or a special interest you have, or whatever else it is that makes sense. These, if you're really interested in this program, like take a screenshot of these. These are my like pro tips. I've been doing this for several years, like a while. Um, and I'm the one who does the matching. So my number one recommendation is to be a mix of ambitious and realistic. Right? A lot of matching will be based on how well your skills align with what the host is asking for. If you don't meet every single point, but you really think you do a great job, put it on your list. But if you only have projects on your list that are a bit of a stretch, you might be making it harder for yourself. Um, Second, this is a quick one, but people ask about this all the time. Don't feel like you're boxed in by the project type selections you made on your application. Like you can apply to any kind of project. Uh, Third, the matches I get most excited about are usually ones where the person has something to bring and something to gain. Like, so maybe you're bringing a ton of expertise in a certain industry, but you're new to the sustainability function. Or maybe you have a background in a sustainability topic, but you're bringing it to a new industry. Or like maybe you have a skill set they need, like maybe you make really good Excel models, but this would be a new application of that skill, right? Like try to find those ones that um, have that combination. Make sure you're looking at the project and its needs and speaking to those and not just the host organization itself. Like a few years ago, we had 4 Google projects with very different criteria. And so many people picked all 4 of them, even though it just was not physically possible for someone to be good at all 4 of those things. So a lot of folks were just basically throwing away a couple of their choices because it was just like you just can't be an expert in the variety of things that they were looking for. Uh, Next, it makes a lot of sense to tailor your paragraphs to the project, because it's unlikely that 2 hosts will ask for the exact same thing. But there are probably things about you that make you a good fit for multiple projects. So if that's the case, repeat yourself in these statements. And then last, these are for EDF. These are not for the host organizations. So they are not the ones making decisions at this stage. Um, we might share information that you share in them with your host down the line, but don't, they're just for me and my team. Uh, cool. So then hopefully after that, we'll send you an email saying you've been matched for the project. And at this point, you will be invited to interview for the specific project you have been matched with. So we're saying, hey, we think you'd be a great match for this project that you picked. Let's proceed with an interview. Uh, the main sections of the interview will be a set of like, skills-based questions and a case study. Get a lot of questions about the case study. This is an opportunity for you to show us how you think and how you might approach real-life situations in your fellowship. And particularly if you haven't done sustainability work before, it gives you an opportunity to show that you know how to approach these problems, even if you haven't done it before in a professional capacity. So we'll send you 3 state case studies in advance. You can pick which one you'd like to present on. If there's a case study that's really well aligned with the projects you've been matched to, we might recommend you do that one, but in general, feel free to select which one you feel highlights your skills best. And then assuming that all goes well, again, we will introduce you to your host organization and you will be a fellow, and we will start that process of getting you to training and um, getting you ready to go. So that's it for me for the moment. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to 2 of our 2023 Climate Corps fellows, Andrew and Nishi, to share a little bit about what their experience of being a fellow was like, um, what their project was, and anything about their network involvement that they'd like to share. I don't think we decided who was going to go first. So if one of you wants to volunteer.
Andrew, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go. I'm happy to take a stab. Okay, everyone. It's so great to see all of you here and interested in this program. I think my summer at EDF was really crucial to my career transition. I graduated from the Mark School with an MPA and was an EDF Climate Corps Fellow in the summer of 2023 at the Dairy Farmers of America, or DFA. DFA is a farmer-owned cooperative with about 10,000 farmer owners across the country. We have 83 manufacturing facilities and 19,000 employees, and is the largest processor of raw milk in the world. I was previously working in marketing and advertising in the entertainment and the art space in New York, but through my MPA program, I was really focused on the intersection of agriculture, climate, and socioeconomics rural policy, because I grew up on a farm in the Midwest and I was seeing some of the impacts that my family was trying to navigate within the governmental system because of what was happening and changing with the climate and the food system. And so I had no idea how to make this career transition. My capstone project was coming up, my graduation date was coming up. And so I saw EDF Climate Corps as a structured educational program for me to be able to navigate and bring my previous marketing and communications experience back into this sustainability and agriculture space where I had no real professional experience. And I really got it that summer. I focused a lot on, there was a big grant that we had just won funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. We had to develop a recruitment strategy to outreach to farms. So that was like thing number one, my previous experience. But also we were trying to engage in the carbon market, and I had to figure out, evaluate different partners or vendors to see what's going to be good for the environment, but what is also going to return value back to farms. So that was a huge educational experience for me, learning about the carbon market, but also bringing in my lived experience from my family's farm. And then I just did a lot of project management and a lot of project design over the summer. And as mentioned by Ashley earlier, I noticed that within the 3 months, my projects were definitely not going to wrap up. And so I never left. I stayed on through the end of my program. And now I work full-time at DFA. I get to work with our farmer owners every day to implement practices on their farms. I manage our government grants, and then I do a lot of operations and business development work. But I didn't even know that DFA existed prior to my EDF application and going through the matching process. So very, very crucial for my professional development. That's it for me for now.
That's great. If we don't have any questions, I can move on and speak about my fellowship as well. So similar to Andrew, graduated 2023 and also did my fellowship in that year. I worked with a firm called Tishman Speyer. They're a real estate firm, also widely known for building the Rockefeller Center. So my role for this fellowship was to calculate the scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions and then help build them a net zero transition plan. And I would say my experience was very positive. Coming from a non-sustainability background or not a degree in sustainability, I would say I learned so much during the training sessions of the fellowship that really helped me perform during the fellowship. So that's one thing that I'd like to highlight, that EDF provides so many resources throughout the fellowship so that you don't feel like you're alone in this. You don't feel like you don't have any help or support or the knowledge. You're always connected with so many professionals who are always ready to help you out. And you have a mentor cohort who's supporting you. So don't worry if you don't have any knowledge in sustainability. There's a lot of resources that you can use to actually do well in your fellowship. The reason why I did this fellowship was because I was always inclined towards sustainability, which is also something that I recommend that you mention in your cover letter. Like Ashley said, you don't need to have any background, but what you need to have is like a passion for working in this field and some kind of experience, maybe personal lived experience, an internship or small role that you did that brings that tangible factor to that passion, that no, you're really dedicated towards this field and why you want to work in this amazing climate change realm. When I joined Climate Corps, I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew that I was passionate about it, but there are so many different routes that you could take that I wasn't aware of before my fellowship. But that is another thing that Climate Corps helped me with, really understand what I wanted to do, how my skills could be of best use, which translated into my current role. So I'm working as an impact investing associate, where I'm using a lot of the learnings from EDF and helping clients invest in environmental solution-based strategies, which I couldn't have done without my Climate Corps fellowship. I have the financial knowledge from my degree, but I use a lot of the learnings from my fellowship in my day-to-day roles, where we're figuring out the best environmental solutions, which also generate financial returns. So overall, a great experience for me. And I'll pass it back to Ashley.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, just really, I think both great examples of how a person who wasn't working in this space can use this as a pivot. So we can take questions if anyone has questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask, that's cool too. First, I answered a question in the chat that I'm going to read live because I think it's an important one. And then we can get to more questions if people have them. But someone asked if you could live in a different state from where the project is offered, if the offer is virtual or fellow's preference. And the answer is usually yes. But some hosts do have restrictions around where remote fellows can live, but they will share those in those little project descriptions that you can read. Samantha, did you see additional questions in the chat
Yeah, I
that would
actually
be
wanted to
helpful?
clarify what the eligibility for this for EDF fellows. I think in previous years, fellows would had to have been enrolled for the following semester. Um, is it now that students who are, is this available to graduating students? Let's say if someone is graduating this upcoming May 2025 after the spring semester. Okay, so
Yes.
this is now, okay, so now it can be a postgraduate.
Yeah. There
Um,
might
and
be
my,
certain hosts who
okay,
like hire the fellow through their internship program, and that's a requirement of their internship program, but it's the a huge minority.
great. Okay, so just so that I can clarify and follow up with a couple people. Okay, and then the second question in regards to eligibility. So let's say if there is a student who is admitted for spring 2025, so they technically haven't started classes yet, and because the deadline for the application is December 22nd, would that person be eligible for this cycle?
No, they would have to wait until the following summer.
Great,
If
great. Okay.
I don't know that if you'll do this at Berg, but if someone's in like a 5-year bachelor master's
Mhm.
program, those people are generally eligible to participate the summer after they get their bachelor's.
Got it. Okay, so anyone who's like in a five, like a four
Yeah.
plus one, what if there is like an undergraduate student who's enrolling in who's starting a graduate program in fall 2025,
Yeah,
like
they would have
not
to wait
separate
till the
from the,
following.
they would have to wait till the fall.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. That
If
actually helps a
anyone
lot.
has questions about their individual eligibility, um, I will put our uh, email address in the chat. You can always just
Great.
like reach out and explain your situation, and we'll let you know.
Awesome. Great. And then another question came through, and I think any one of you can actually attest to this, is can someone with a full-time job have a fellowship? And how long is it?
I would say no. They are 10 to 12 weeks plus training, and they're like it's like a full-time 40-hour a week thing. If you have a full-time job that's like nights or kind of like an unusual shift, maybe. Um, but fellowships are generally like, 9 to 5-ish.
Mhm. Great, 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 great. Is the May training in person or virtual?
It is virtual.
Okay, great. That's awesome. That's a good plus. Okay, I'm looking through to see if
Depends
there's
who you ask.
any. Yeah, that's true. Let's see if there are any other questions that came in. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or and mute yourself or just throw them in the chat. I guess I'll ask a question to Nishi and Andrew. Since completing the fellowship, what actually, yeah, so I know that you're both very active in the EDF alumni community. I guess like what's one thing that keeps you active in it? Like what's the thing that makes you stay very close to it and, come back to Baruch and present on it as well?
I can go first. So my first interaction or like a networking session with the Climate Corps, I realized that I'm not the only one who's like interested in this field or like anxious about climate change. So when I was in a room full of individuals who shared the same passions or same views as me, it really made me feel like I belong to this community, felt like a mini family of people who thought the same way and were passionate about this, which is why I kept coming back to like networking sessions or like would love to interact with people who are working in this field, especially people who work at EDF. They're super, super nice, including Ashley. They're all super helpful, whether or not they work with the Climate Corps fellowship or not. If you hit them up on LinkedIn, they're so interested in talking to you about what they do, what EDF does, or how you can be a contributor in this field, which is why I honestly feel like being a part of this family and I'm coming back to it and talking about it. And I would recommend anyone who gets the chance to be a part of this fellowship, to really utilize all those resources, to be a part of this family, which is constantly growing. And it's always nice to see people who are young and who have new ideas and who are so interested in this field, bringing a change. So that's my reason.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and the same. The support that I felt over the summer and through the people that I've met continuing the year past has just been extremely helpful as I've taken on a full-time position in this space, and makes me want to also support others in the same way that I was supported. I saw people volunteering their time and sharing their insight and their wisdom, and just thinking about how I can do the same thing. And sustainability is like a challenging space. It's always evolving and changing. And I think having that support and having that connection to insights is just very, very helpful. I still go back to my training materials from May 2023 because I was like, I know I read about this like scope 3 thing, but what did it say? There was a whole guidebook. And so then I always go back there and check. And yeah, I still have some regular calls with some of the people in my mentor group because it was, yeah, we're just very supportive.
Great. And actually, that brings up a good segue. So Andrea asks, upon completing the fellowships, are fellows guaranteed employment at the agencies that they were placed in? I don't believe that's the case, and would vary depending on the employer. But this brings up a good question I'll start with you, Andrew, because you did land a full-time position. Could you talk about that transition after the fellowship? And then Nishi, I'll ask you a different question related to that.
Yeah, sure. So I also treated my summer as like an informal job interview, kind of like testing out, do I want this person to be my supervisor? Meeting with people that had also started here and doing like informal interviews with them. Like, what's this place actually like to work at outside of this like fellowship, sort of like rose-colored glasses? Am I like being protected from something? And really spent that summer on site to flesh this stuff out. I felt like it was such a great opportunity since there's not a lot of jobs within the agricultural sustainability space. And then since I did that my first couple of months, and as I was like wrapping things up, I could see that these projects weren't ending. So I just made my pitch as part of like the final deliverables. Like, I'm delivering all this stuff and then there's not the capacity to actually do it. Let me just stay on. So I still had a semester left of school. So I stayed on part-time as a fellow as I finished up my capstone project and one other class. And then around end of October, started talking about what a full-time position would look like come January 2024. So it was just about really taking in the surroundings, doing the due diligence on the ground, but then also being upfront about what I wanted, because this fellowship, it is an educational opportunity for me to get some stuff out of, but I also have to provide value to the host organization that EDF has placed me with. So how can we continue to have that dialogue after 3 months is wrapped up?
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, Ashley put in the chat treating it as like an informal job interview. And I'm thinking, yeah, like just, being kind of taking like shadowing to the next level and really using that to your advantage is really awesome. So Nishi, I'll turn it over to you. And my question for you is like, if you can think back to when you were applying for positions after the fellowship, what ways were you using your EDF experience to leverage, whether it was in your resume, your cover letter, or your interviews?
Well, I mostly used it to network with fellows. So I went on LinkedIn and I looked at all the Climate Corps fellows who've been fellows in the past, and also people who work at EDF. And you'll be surprised to see the kind of different fields EDF fellows end up with. Like, there's consulting, there's finance, there's agriculture, healthcare, education too. So I used that opportunity to really make those connections with past fellows and how they navigated it, and how they found their purpose or like their job. And I used that to also build connections with people who are not EDF fellows, but also work at similar companies and roles. I'd say use the networking opportunity. It's very, very, very helpful, and people are very receptive to it. The other thing that I used was my experience from Climate Corps. I'll always speak of that when I'm in within job interviews. The whole process, when you speak of that, it's so unique because you're not just part of a host fellow, but you're also part of EDF, right? So in a way, you have two employers, but you're learning different things from both of them. So as a graduate, you're also doing not just a fellowship role, but you're also a consultant. Not a lot of people get that when you talk to them that you're just a fellow. They think of you as an intern, but you're much more than that. You bring a lot to the table. So I'd say like, I would always make a point that I'm speaking about all the things that I contributed, but also the things that my host organization implemented from my fellowship, that what I presented to them was not just a presentation, but they really adopted it. I could see that in their reports, or like they implemented a strategy that I suggested. I think that's one point that people are really surprised when you talk to them about. So I'd say talk as much as you can about your fellowship, the whole journey of how selective the program is, and all the learnings that you get from the fellowship, because it is really unique. So it's important to speak about what you went through so that people know your potential.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. I didn't even bring up networking, and that's like basically like what we kind of like practice and preach here in career services. So that thank you for bringing that point up. I know. So Joanna asked a question about additional host orgs in the agricultural space, and Ashley, you sent over the link with project hosts for past hosts. The hosts tend to change every year depending on who's looking, but that can give you an idea of who or what organizations are looking. Okay, so we are in the last couple minutes of today's session. And just to close out, I'd like to hear from Ashley, Andrew, and Nishi. Just one little tidbit about something that people can take as they're embarking on applying or thinking about applying. And I'll start with you, Ashley.
I'm not short-winded on my like tidbits about the application process.
Could be a
That's
big
something I could
tidbit. That's
talk about for a
fine.
very long time. But I will I would highly encourage people, if you're like really thinking about this and um, are serious about thinking about applying for this. I think talking to people about this opportunity and hearing from more people like Andrew and Nishi can only strengthen your application. So I will plug that next week we're having an alumni panel that I just put in the chat. So 3 of our 2024 fellows will be talking about their experience. You can hear more from more people. And I will also plug that if, I don't know, just like if you want to talk about anything related to Climate Corps, that you can sign up for a one-on-one chat with a member of our recruitment team. If you want to talk about like how can you best translate your experience into a successful Climate Corps application. So we're happy to help you do that.
I I think it's absolutely just worth taking a shot and doing it, even if to think about those questions that you have to answer on the application to better refine how you want to fit within the sustainability space. It really made me think about my own climate story and the work that I wanted to do and the people and communities that I wanted to impact through my work. And really leaning into that and highlighting that throughout the application process, what you want to get out of this and what you give to the people that are providing the opportunity for you that you would get through this. So I just think it's worth taking a shot, if anything, to learn more about yourself and where you want to go next.
And I would say tell your story in the application, sit down, think of everything you've done in your entire lifetime, academically, professionally, personally. Think of how all of that has led up to you applying for this role, and make sure that you mention that in your CV. It doesn't matter if it's not professional or it's not like a fancy internship in climate, but everything counts. It's your story that matters. So make sure that you highlight your story, highlight why you're so passionate about applying to this. And good luck with your application.
Thank you
I
all
think that's
so much.
I think that's just like again, I'll go on forever about tidbits. But yes, like I want your cover letter, like of course it should be like relatively professional-ish sounding. Um, but you don't have to just like regurgitate your resume. Like I want to hear about you and like as an actual person and why you want to do this. So you don't have to like I am data analytics, like kind of robotic. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I like to think of it as like a mixture, like what you're all saying is like it's a mix between a personal statement and a cover letter. So it's not as regimented necessarily as a cover letter that doesn't always give room to express your mission. And then vice versa, in a personal statement, you're not really you're less talking about like sometimes your professional life. You really have to talk of it in a way that connects personally. And so this is a very nice way to kind of combine the two. So I'm always very excited when I get to work with applicants on these, especially on the climate core, because it is a very unique kind of pitch that you're allowed to get. So. Thank you all. So everyone, please help me in thanking Ashley, Nishi, and Andrew for joining us today. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to your respective career services offices. Again, the deadline is December 22nd. We hope to hear from many of you that are looking to apply this year. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.